All right, welcome back. So this section is mainly about a component called the card. We have a couple videos on it. However, the first video is on list groups. And there's a reason for that. I didn't just shoehorn it in here. Often you can put a list group inside of a card, and you'll see that coming up later in the section. Anyway, we're talking about list groups here, just a single video. They are a way for displaying series of content. So they look like this. First of all, you can find it under Components, List Group. They look like this by default, and the easiest, well, it's not the easiest, but one way of making them is by making a UL, an unordered list, giving it a class of list group, and then each LI, you give the class of list group item. So I'll test it out really quick. I have a new empty file. So all that we would do is make a UL with the class of list-group, and then whatever items we want to be in there is LI, and then with the class of list group item. And then in here, put whatever we want. Let's say first thing, I'll just do second and third. Okay, just like that. And yeah, I don't have a container, so you can see it takes up the entire width. Obviously, I'll show you later, you can use the grid system. I'm just going to add a container now just so that it doesn't go all the way across. It's still quite large, but that's fine enough for now. So that's our first most basic list group. Now we can also give the active class to things or the disabled class. So let's give this one active, the first one, and the second one will be disabled. And it looks like this. You can see that the disabled one is grayed out. The active one has that blue. Further down, you can also change things up a little bit. Instead of using LIs, if you wanted to make links, if you wanted to make buttons that do actions, we call them like an actionable list item. It would look like this, where you can hover, you can click on these, and they're supposed to do something. Versus if you're just purely displaying information versus making something clickable and actionable, what you would use here to make the latter is to use buttons or anchor tags, and you give them the class of list group item action. So it's kind of a long class name in my opinion, but if we just do one more of these, we'll do a div with the class of list group. So that's unchanged. But then we do anchor tags or buttons, and the anchor tag we give the class of list group item, but we also give the class of list group item action. And then let's just do the same thing. Duplicate this a couple times. I change the text, and well, I should add some padding or something. Okay, so there you go. Now we get this hover effect that we don't get with just a plain list group. Okay, so another thing we can do is make a flush list group, and all you do is give it the class of list-group-flush. So I'm just going to duplicate this one I already have and come down here. I'll add an H3 that just says list group flush, and then we just do list-group-flush. And I took it outside the container, so you can't even see what I've done. Whoops. Okay, here we go. Save this. And we don't have this border going all the way around it. We still get the active class. If I get rid of the active class, because personally, if I'm using list group flush, I don't like the default active styling. You could change it. Maybe give like a lighter color or just an underline. You could just write your own CSS to do that. Okay, so that's list group flush. We also have all these color contextual classes, so we can give each item list group item and then a color name. So list group item info. There you go. And this one above it, we could do, I don't know, I won't make you watch all of them, of course. List group item warning. And we have access to all of the colors that we know and maybe love, maybe despise at this point. And they're showing that it also works with list group item action, so you can get the hover effect. So to show that, let's do the same thing here on the second one. List-group-item-danger. And now I still get that hover effect because this is an action. List group item action. This is just plain list group, or it's actually flush. And this one doesn't have any hover effects either. Okay, we haven't talked about badges, but you can put badges in there. So once we do talk about them, you can experiment with this too. But yeah, you can use these flex utilities to move content around inside your list group. But I could still do that now. Okay, so here's an example. I typed something up. We have a just basically copied the flush list group, except I changed some of the text. So we just have some text. It doesn't really make sense. Hello world. And then I have a span. Let me make this larger. We have a span, and the span just has a date with text muted. These lines are kind of long. It honestly might make more sense to do something like this. Anyway, so each one of these is just super simple. And what I want to do is align it to the right so that this span goes all the way over here. So to do that, we can use the Flexbox utilities, where if we have these two items and this is the given space they have, if you watch some of those other videos, I can divvy up all this space. And so I can say space between, which will then send them across. We'll send the date across to the right side. But first, and that will be justify content between. First though, I need to actually make them deflex. Like that. And if I save, you don't really notice any change because by default, the justify content is set to start. Now, if I did justify content end, you can see they both move to that side. If I do justify content and then instead of end, I do center, they're going to go to the middle. Did I misspell that? Yeah, centers. They go to the middle, but if I do between, there we go. So I can duplicate that here and here and save. All right. It's taking up quite a bit of space, so we can also work this in with the grid system. So here, let's just duplicate this, just do list group plus grid. Let's say that I want two list groups that take up half the screen. Okay, so if we're just working with, we're in a container first of all, but if we're working with our grid system, we need a row, and then we need two columns, and we can start super simple with just column 6. Okay, and then paste in our list group. I'm going to copy this and paste it over. And indentation is whatever for now. So there we go. It's taking up 50%, or 6 out of 12 at all times. I could also duplicate this column. So we'll just have two of the same list group. And already it looks a little bit better, not having it take up all that space. Now it still might be a bit much, as far as how short this text is and how wide this gap is, but that's okay. Now we can also make it responsive as we've seen before. All we need to do is change this from column 6 always to be, I don't know, let's see where it makes the most sense. Where should we have it stack? So I think this looks good up until, I think we can get away with just saying small. So let's do column small 6. Save. Now they should stack right there. There we go. And we might want to add some padding to make it clear that these are two, or margin to make it clear these are two lists. So we could do margin top on both of them. Just nice and simple. I don't know, margin top 4. You could make this responsive too, but now when they stack, that might be too much, but we get some margin. Anyway, so that's list groups. I'm showing them to you now because we can also put them inside of cards, which I'll show you in a bit. If you do look at the docs, you can also do more complex content where you can have headings in there. It's just regular markup that you put inside, and you can just style everything using Flexbox. So this here, there's this one container where everything's in a column. So we have this row, this row, this row going down in a column. And then this top thing also has display flex, and it's set to justify content start or between, which forces this to the left and this to the right. So the point is you can do more complicated markup. You still get all the styles. You can still do the hovers with the actions. You can make things active and disabled and so on. All right, that is list groups.